Welcome to html5dev.com. In this video, we're going to build this data table. And as you can see, we can hover over with an effect. And in here, we can insert the data by clicking Add New Customers, going to this page, and using this button and these inputs. And we can hit this to go back. And in here, we can also filter the data by clicking this. Here we can type in any account name. So let's say if I just use B here, it isolates immediately any name that has B anywhere, right? And then according to this column, customer status, we can just, let's isolate the leads. Boom, there you go. And customer stage. So let's find the qualified ones. And there you go. And if we want to clear it, hit filter reset, and we get our data back. And we don't stop here only. We also click on this row to go to an edit screen. Here we can update data or delete the account. And before we get started, I just wanted to show you the backend data structure. This customer table is the one where I'm getting all the data from, and these are all the customer fields. I mean, these are the default ones, and these are the ones I added. And here are the data, all customers. Besides all that, let me show you another interesting set of data that Bubble offers. These are called option sets. These are not quite the tables or table-based data. These are, on the other hand, a set of text list, static text list that the database will hold for you. And these are the ones we can use. For example, as you can see here, a set of text, need analysis, qualified, follow-up, etc. These are the things we normally use straight up in here, in the drop-downs. Usually, when we create drop-downs, we tend to type them in manually, right? But when we do that in a larger application, when we take this same data and try to use them in a condition or a logical situation, that might cause some trouble because we may make spelling mistakes, and when we are using them there, we have to hand type them, right? But if we're using them like this from options, pulling them straight up, right? So what happens is these data becomes dynamic, by which I mean you type them in once, database holds them, and then you pull them in here, and whenever you use them logically, you just pull it in via dynamic data. So you don't, no manual involvement like typing or anything is necessary, so that data stays intact and always works fine. So there you have it, guys. This is what we're about to build from scratch. And last but not least, okay, there you go. So this is the Chrome dev tool for responsiveness. And since the whole project is built on Bubble Flexbox Layout, so as you can see here, everything is nice and responsive for mobile devices. In here, user can nicely use this gesture to look at the entire table, and pretty much all the items, like if I click here, this is also nice and responsive. And one thing I apologize about is that my design is not up to par, I know. I mean, because the thing is, in this projects, I usually try to focus more on the functionality rather than it looks and feels, because look and feel, you can change very easily, right? So that being said, let's get started. All right, so right here we have a brand new page set up, but this page has the old fixed layout, right? So we're gonna go ahead and come here and turn this into flex layout. All right, so now let's go back, and now that it has a flex layout, we should check out the layout box here, and give this a column layout, because everything we're gonna do here are gonna be on top of each other. And here we will go ahead and give it a total size of 1550 and the height of 1000. That's the base page. Now we will bring in container, a group, drop it here, and let's call this guy container. All right, and so that this is pretty visible, so we remove the default styles and give it a flat color. Let's choose this gray and give it a 10%, right? Something that we can see when we go into preview and come here. Let's give it also a column layout and remove the fixed width so that it covers end to end. Remove the minimum width and a max width of 1500, and as a height, let's fix it to 800 for now, and we will adjust this as we go. And since this is a min height, and also we checked this, like the fit height to content, so as we keep adding content to it, it's gonna keep on growing larger, so that's not an issue. Let's do a preview. Okay, so as you can see, it is tilted to the left. So what we do, let's make it centered. You see, there you go. Now we have our content in place. Now let's go back and do this, just the small stuff, this logo and this heading text. Let's bring out an image, drop it here. And this is going to be a logo image, a static image. So let's bring out the logo. All right, and let's name it also logo. Go to layout. This is a little bit too big, so I'm just going to keep it to 70 pixel, and the aspect ratio should be fixed. There you go. And bring it to the center, and let's give it a top margin of 30 pixel and a roundness of, let's say, 20. All right, so now that it's nicely centered, now let's bring in, and remember, since this has a column layout, as you can see here, so anything we drop here is gonna go one after the other from top to bottom, right? But if it was row, they would go side by side. And that's the base principle of the Flex layout. Now let's go bring in the header text, and let's choose this time an H1 dark and say customers. All right, now let's remove the base styles, bring it to the center, and I'm gonna stick to 36 as a size. And then let's go to layout, take out the fixed width, remove the minimum width, right, and the minimum height. Okay, now let's give it a top margin of 30 pixel and bottom margin of 30 pixel. All right, so our page structure, the base stuff has been complete. Before we bring in the next item, let's take a look at what it looks like. There you go. And now let's bring in the responsive tool for Chrome, and let's see what it looks like. See, it's nicely goes in. I mean, when this happens, just try to do a refresh and it will be okay. There you go. All right, so our base plate is ready. All right, so this is our target project, and next we're gonna bring in these two blocks right here. I mean, create. So let's do that. First of all, we're gonna bring in the group, and in here we're gonna, first thing that our group will have a row layout, and we'll remove the fixed width. and the minimum width, and for height we're going to keep it because we're going to be filling that in with other components. And at this point we're going to name it button box. Okay, and appearance, remove the styling, and we're going to give it a solid border so that whenever you click somewhere else the empty group exists. Alright, so now that we have our row set up, let's bring in 3 buttons. I mean these 3 guys. Alright, let's put it in here. Let's fix this guy up, remove the default styles, and let's make it a background of black. And this one we call it filter customers. Okay, there you go. And layout, we're gonna keep the fixed width here, and we're gonna increase the width by 100 pixel. There you go. And we're gonna keep that min height to 45. That's fine. So now that we have our button looking all right, I'm gonna highlight this. I'm gonna Control C and Control V that, Control C and Control V that. Alright, so now we have our 3 buttons and all of them should be right aligned. So we'll go to the container and have them right aligned and move this a little bit. Alright, now we can see all of them, and let's go fix them up one by one. This guy, what we should call him, we should call him filter reset, and this guy should be add new customer. There you go. And this guy we can go ahead and change the background color to something, let's say like that, right? So this is good, and we need a little bit of distance from the other buttons. So let's go to layout and give this guy a left margin of 10 pixel, and this guy a left margin of 10. So now we are looking good. At this point let's preview. Okay, and let's bring in the Google responsive tool and see what's happening here. Alright, so there is a big gap in here. Let's figure out why this is happening. Alright, we're back at the editor, and we have seen now all our buttons working great, and they're breaking when the responsiveness takes over. So what we do this time, take this button box container and remove this min height to 0, right? So now we have our button box exactly the size we wanted. So now let's go do a preview. All right, and this time we're not going to see all the big gaps, right? So but we are seeing that we have actually no gaps, right? Okay, so this is where I was trying to get at. And now what we're going to do, go to the buttons one by one and just give them a small top margin of 10, all of them. Right, now let's preview, and this time when they break perfectly, right? Okay, so this part is done, and we will get rid of this border later. Now let's go to the next step, which is this block right here. So let's create, and as we know, that is also going to be a row layout box. So what we do, we just copy this one, Control C and V, and in this case we will bring in that min height back because we're going to empty it out and fill it up with other things, right? So let's for now give it a 200. All right, and at this point we're going to go ahead and get rid of these guys. All right, so now that we have our container, we're going to rename it to filter box. Okay, and align everything to the left because we no longer need that. And let's start by bringing in a text input, this, because our target would be this guy, account name, which is a text input, and the rest would be drop downs, right? Okay, so let's start here and call it account name. Okay, now let's go to layout. We maintain this, but remove the fixed width and maintain this fixed height of 45 pixel. That's fine. Actually, I'm going to change this minimum width to 300. All right, and now let's bring in the drop down. All right, and this should be on the right side, so let's go to the layout and make last, so that's where it goes, and also make this minimum 300 and maintain the rest. Sorry, actually I have to remove this fixed width, right? So now fixed width removed and min width is 300, and this one we should call it customer status. Okay, so now that's ready. Now we're gonna go ahead and Control C and Control V that, and we have our customer stage. So let's change that. All right, all three are ready to go. Now at this point, let's take care of this guy a little bit, the container. Let's go to layout, and we're going to give it a 10 pixel top margin and 10 pixel bottom margin. All right, and we also give it a 10 pixel padding all the way around. There you go. So now we have some paddings going on, and as we can see, let's go do a preview. Let's go do a preview. All right, so we need a little bit of gap here, so let's go and come here and give it a 5 pixel left margin, and this guy, let's give it another 5 pixel left margin, and remove this padding altogether. We don't need that. Here also we don't need that padding. Good. And this guy now, our container, we're going to remove this minimum height and give it a flat background color. We're going to choose this dark gray and opacity of 20%. Well, there you go. Now let's go preview. That's it. We have ourselves a nice little button box and a filter box. And please remember, at this point we're just gonna focus on responsiveness and the structure. And just because of those 5 pixel gap, this is being created. I mean, you can always conditionally remove them, or as soon as they break, you can set up a condition to remove that extra 5 pixel, and they're gonna all look the same. So what we can also do, just come here and go to layout and add a 5 pixel left margin right here, right? Which is not gonna make much of a difference look and feel wise. So let's preview. But when we break it, responsive wise, everything is now lining up. All right, and quickly, another thing I'm gonna do here is come here and remove this button box's border, right? Make it none, and let's preview. Look at that. Our product looks almost like a finished product here. All right, so pretty much that was the goal at this point. And next we're gonna go ahead and bring in our repeating group, where we will show our data like this. So let's go do that. All right, so now we are ready for our repeating group for the data table. So let's bring in our repeating group. All right, and what we do, first of all, name it customer data. And first thing we do, set up a data source. We're gonna show our customers from the customer table, and here let's do a search for, grab customer, and that's that. And in here let's just have an open set of rows, and at the very beginning we're gonna give it a larger height so that we can put in our stuff in, just for that help. And then in here we're going to go ahead and remove the fixed width so that it expands from end to end, and a minimum width is 0, and minimum height we're going to keep it at 350. That's not a problem here. That being done, we also need to set the layout as column, because what we're going to be putting in goes from top to bottom. Next, let's focus on the header row, right, which is this guy right here, header row, which will have our header text. So on that note, let's bring in a group, dump it right here, and give this guy a row layout, and also give it a, remove the fixed width, remove the minimum width here. And for now we're going to keep this 250 as a height because we don't have content yet, and we're going to just keep it a, let's remove the default styling and give it a solid border just so that we can locate it. And we're going to give it a name, table header. Okay, all right, now that we have our container here, let's bring in our first text element, and we're going to choose a H2 dark, remove the style, make it center, and give it a bold layout, and we are going to name it account name as our first one. Okay, and now let's go, and also I'm gonna give it a size of 18 pixels. Let's go to layout and remove the fixed layout and give it a 0 min width and 0 height. And let's go to the container, and since it has a padding option, let's give it a padding of 10 pixels everywhere. That way we don't have to play around with margins too much. Okay, now that we have our header text ready, now let's see how many we need. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. So what we're going to do, highlight this and do a Control C, Control V, Control C, V, C, V. We have 4 and C, V, and last one. That way we have all our 6 column headers. Now I'm going to go ahead and give them the names: contact name, customer status, customer stage, deal size, and close date. I'll be right back. All right, so as you can see right here, close date, just like that, I've changed all the header names. So looks like our header is in place. So now what we're going to do, go ahead and remove this 250 pixel min height, and we have a nice little header row going on. At this point we're going to bring in our data row, which is where all the data is going to show up. So let's grab another group and also give it a row and remove the fixed width, remove the minimum height, minimum width. Height we're going to keep for now, and also name this guy data row. Okay, what we're going to do, go back here, and this one, let's give it a flat color, choose dark gray, and give it a 20% opacity. Okay, and this guy here, we're gonna go ahead and give it just a solid border so that we can identify this. Let's make sure it's a row. Now that that's done, let's start bringing in our data items. Let's bring in a text element right now. Okay, so here let's remove the default styles and give it a size of 18 pixel. Center it, but we're not going to bold it this time. And here let's remove the static data and bring in the dynamic data. But here I made one mistake, which is this container actually need to be set before we have a text one, right? So let's remove this text element altogether, highlight this container and set its own data source customer. And as a repeating group, we already know we have a data source of customer from the customer table. So in here, when we click, it actually tells us current cell customer. It's actually inheriting that data source from the repeating group itself. So let's choose that, and now our container is ready for data. Okay, so now let's bring in the text item, remove the styles, give it an 18 pixel size, remove the text, the static one, and let's grab the dynamic. And at this point it says parent group customer, and we're going to set it to account name. Okay, so now we have our data source connected with the data, and at this point we're going to go ahead and give it remove the fixed width, remove the minimum width, minimum height, all that. Also, since we have padding, let's go back to the container and give it a nice little 10 pixel padding all the way around, so we don't have to worry about margin too much. Let's go back to our text element and let's center it. Okay, so now that we have our one piece of data ready, actually let's give it another top margin of 10 pixel and bottom margin of 10 pixel. At this point, let's make a copy of it 5 times actually. Okay, Control C and V, Control C and V, C and V, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the last one, right? So they're all now right underneath their headers. Very nice. So this is account name. So all we have to do now, change this data to contact name and customer status. Let's choose customer status from here, and we have to add another extra item, which is display. And let me show you why. Because this status and staging, all this information coming from the database but not from the data table. They're coming from option sets, the special type of data I talked to you about at the very beginning. So these are those static, text data set that we can use with drop downs. So one special attribute they have is called display. Like when you bring data from here, it actually gives you the value of something, like input has value, and the database data they just drop it straight. But in options case, once you choose that option, display would be the one actually displaying the text. For example, right here, we chose that status, but then we have to choose this display attribute for that data to show up. Same here, you'll see, we go there and customer stage, display, only because they're coming from options table. Deal size, let's see, we are going to have a deal size right here, but deal size is in currency, so we're going to add extra formatting to it. We're going to choose a currency and a decimal point 2. Decimal separator is decimal, and thousand separator would be a comma, and I'm going to choose euro as the money. Boom. See, as you already see, the sign is showing up. And now let's get that date, which is here, close date, And since it's a date, we can also format it the way we want. And I would like this format for our data. And now that it's all said and done, so let's have a preview. All right, look at that. All the data is here just the way we like it. All right, so now we're going to resolve the cosmetic issues, right? So basically in here we have a big space like a min height, which we will turn into 0. And then let's go to the repeating group, and here we're going to go ahead and instead of 200 minimum height, we're going to make it a 20 pixel minimum height, right? So now let's refresh. There you go, looking great. And as you can see, the header is coming up on every single row, right? That cannot happen. So that's where our conditional logic will come in. We're going to choose this top group table header, and in here we're going to add a condition. And you should know, like all the rows have an index, right? All the cells have index. So what we're going to tell this table is that show this header only when the index is 1. That means only on the top row it should be visible, and the rest should not be visible, right? So on that note, let's go first. Let's remove the default visualization, which is the element is visible on page load. So let's remove that. So on page load, they're not going to be visible anymore, no headers, right? So now we're going to set up a condition, current cell index. When current cell index is 1, only then this element should be visible, check, right? Now let's preview. Boom, look at that. How nice. Now we have a perfect table going on. And at this point, we're not going to start adding all the filters yet, but first thing what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and add a hover effect for our rows, right? So this is our data row, and in here we're going to add a condition. When this group is hovered, what you do is change the background style to a flat color, and then choose a background color of white, right? So now let's preview, and now you see we have a nice little hover effect going on. So we're closing in. So far so good. Next we're going to go ahead and start working on the filtering, and this block right here, this should be invisible, and once we click here, this should be dropping down. Basically we're going to have a toggle item here, and just like this, right? So let's get that done. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and add a toggle effect here, make this guy disappear, and by clicking on this button we're going to make it toggle, right? So first what we need to do is highlight this guy and take out this condition here. This element is visible on page load. Let's take it out, and if it is gone, then something needs to take its place. So collapse when hidden, and while you are doing so, let's animate a simple slide up and down animation, right? Okay, so now if I preview, it's gonna be gone, right? But to get it back, let's first click here and go to a workflow. Let's begin a workflow. It's pretty simple. I mean, all we have to do is just go to element action, find toggle, and choose what we need to toggle, and that was our filter box. So let's toggle our filter box. which is this. This is our filter box and this is our button box. So now let's preview. All right, and we're seeing a little bit of a problem here, right? So let's see what's happening here. We have what kind of margin going on? Pretty much nothing. And on our repeating group, on the other hand, let's add a 20 pixel margin, right? Let's preview. Okay, looking great. So now let's click filter customer, comes back, click again, goes away. Okay, and this distance is a little bit high, so let's see if we have any. Yes, we do. We have a 10 pixel here extra going on. So let's go remove this bottom margin of 10 pixel. All right, now let's go refresh, drop down, looking pretty good, goes away. So that being done, now next we should focus on is our filtering system. Like this text box, if we type something, it should filter, and this drop down. Oh, and yes, look at this. We missed this. These drop downs are not showing anything. So before we even get started on the filtering, let's go take care of that. So let's choose this guy. All right. And if there was a static choice, we would be typing things in, but we're no longer going to do that because we have options data table, right? So let's go make it dynamic. And from here, since this is customer status, let's choose customer status and get all the status. And the current option, display. As I showed before, this display is the attribute that will actually make things show up here. So now this is done, and let's finish this guy. Same way, dynamic choice. And this time we're going to choose customer stage, and then bring in all the customer stages from the options table, and current option, display. Oh, now let's preview. Okay, here we go. Now all our status displaying here from the options table, and our staging data all available here. Now let's go make the filters work. All right, so we are back at our editor, and let's pay attention to these names. This is customer stage, this one is customer status, and this is account name, right? These are going to be very handy when we start doing our filtering. And filtering actually starts here at the repeating group, right? Before we just pulled in the data, no problem, everything's fine. But now what we have to do is add something to it, more. And let's see, here you go. So this is an extra item called filtered. And this is where we're going to go ahead and tell the system what to look for. We're going to start with our first text one, which is account name. So let's start here. Account name. And since this is a text box, it can have anything. So we're going to say if it contains input account name, its value. So it's going to match whatever that input account name contains with what we have here as account names. Sorry, actually I should move this here so that you can see account name, this guy, right? So once again, let's start. That's our filtering process. Start with our account name here. Now next would be status. So let's grab status, customer status, And since these are precise text from the drop down and they're coming straight from the options table, so this time we're going to have precise equal sign, and we're going to match that with our drop down customer status, which is this guy right here, its value, right? And next would be customer stage. So once again, let's go and find out what customer stage has to offer. Customer stage, and this is also another precise text we're matching, equals drop down customer stage, its value. All right, so now if I try to run it here now, what's going to happen is we're not going to have any data showing up, because repeating group will be waiting on these guys to show certain value. If there's no value, it's not going to give us anything. So to prevent that, we have to check this checkbox, ignore empty constraints. That means when nobody's touching these guys, it's going to ignore everything and give us the regular data, right? So let's keep it here. Let's do a preview. All right, see, this is one thing that we already got our data because of that constraint, empty constraint ignorance that we checked. That's why we're getting all this data. And now let's go see what happens when I type in B here. Boom, there you go. So it just went through all the names, account names, and anywhere there's a B, it brought those up. And now let's filter using the customer status. Let's pick up the lead ones. And from here, we're gonna just focus on the qualified. Boom, there you go. And this being done now, we're gonna focus on this filter reset, right? We're gonna reset that so that we get our table data back. So let's go back and click here. Let's go to a workflow. And this one, we straight go to the element action group and reset the data. And find the group that we want to reset, which is our filter box. This guy right here. This guy has all the inputs, so in one shot, we're going to reset all the inputs in this specific group, right? So that being done, let's preview. Let's filter again. Lead. Let's this time need analysis. And one click here, we get all our data back. So we're very close to finishing these data table options. We already took care of the filter box toggle, and then filter reset, and the data filters according to our data points right here. All right, so now let's go focus on a whole different page, which will help us add the brand new data to this table. All right, so our current target is to build something like this, a complex form, somewhat complex, especially because when you're using Flexbox, you'll see it requires a certain skill to pull this off and make sure that this is responsive, right? So at this point, we're gonna just focus on just building it and making it responsive, and then we'll bring in the actions and logic necessary to make it functional. And here our plan would be, as you can see, it's a 2-column form. So if we take a Flexbox approach, we're going to have a first container, which is a column, and then inside another container, which is a row. And inside that row, we're going to have 2 other groups that will have the column layout. As you can see in here, first 2 blocks are side by side, but inside the block, they're top to bottom, right? So first row and then column. So let's get started. All right, so we are back at our editor, and we're going to actually create the data insert or customer add new customer page, and we're going to start right here, this button, and we're going to give this guy a workflow where it will simply navigate to a page, and that page is not available just yet, so we're going to create one, and we're going to call it index UT new customer, and we're going to clone it from our current page, which is index UT, so that we can get the basic formatting going. Create, and now let's pick index UT new customer. That's it. So now if we refresh this home page or index UT page and click here, we end up in a new page. As you can see here, index UT new customer. So that being done, now let's grab that page, index UT new customer, and go to work. First of all, what we do is make sure all hidden stuff are visible. Okay, and now one by one we get rid of them. Okay, so this is going to be our template, and to start with, let's start here and call it add new customer. Okay, we have our header ready. Now let's go bring in a group which is going to be our form container, and let's call it form container. And this one should have a row layout. Actually, this one should have a column layout. And let's remove the fixed width and the minimum width. We're going to maintain the minimum height at this point. Go back, remove the default styles, and give it a flat color. Choose gray and 20% opacity. And let's give it a roundness of 20 pixels. Okay, so this is going to be our form container, and in the layout, let's also limit it to a maximum width of 800 and center it. Let's preview. All right, now we're going to start adding elements to it. Initially, what we need is another group. Now this one will have a row layout. This is where we're going to have our columns in, right? So this one needs to be side by side, and let's also remove the fixed width and the minimum width also. And at this point, let's maintain this 250 as a min height, so that we can bring in other stuff to it. So this one is ready, and let's call this a row. Now let's bring in other group, and this time let's remove this style and give it a flat color, same way gray, but opacity of 10, and a border of solid, so that we can locate it easily right there. Okay, that being done, also this time let's call this a column, simply column, right? Now let's go to layout, give this guy a column layout, remove the fixed width and have a minimum width of 300, and let's maintain this 250 as a minimum height, so that we can put stuff in here. All right, so now this group, we're going to add just a 15 pixel of padding every side. All right, that being done, let's start bringing in our labels and inputs. Start with text. So, and let's remove the default styles give it an 18 pixel and make it bold. Now let's say account name. There you go. And let's go to layout, make it unfixed, and no minimum width here, and no minimum height. And at the bottom, we're just going to add a 10 pixel margin. Now let's bring in, and remember, this one has a column layout, right? That's going to be our column. All right. So which means now if I bring in an input, it's just going to sit at the bottom, and let it be text. That's fine. And let's call this account name. And let's go to layout, remove the fixed width and remove any minimum width, but I'm going to keep the minimum height at 45. And also remember, this column block, we have a minimum height of 300, minimum width of 300, right? So now one column looks good. So to make it second column, let's copy Control C and then paste Control V. There you go. Nice little second column. Now let's change the text to contact name. Contact name, and this should be also contact name. All right, so now we have our two columns set. Let's go see how many we need. We need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns. All right, so these columns now, we can go ahead and remove this minimum height. All right, so the parent container's height is still remaining, and let's make it a little smaller, 150, only because so that we can access it easily, right? So I click on it and I go to my row and I click here, come back to my column, right? So that's why. And later on we're going to remove all that. So that being done, so let's create 5 rows. Control C, V, C and V, Control C and V, Control C and V. There you go. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Great. Now before I change anything, I'm just gonna go ahead and change all these labels and come back. And in this case, this one we just flat out remove, right? Because we don't need it, and we'll fix that later. So I'll be right back. All right, now as you can see, all the labels are taken care of. Now let's go one by one, take care of the type of input we're using, right? So here it's a contact number. So let's go change it to US phone. And this is an email. So let's change that to email. And here we're gonna need 2 drop downs, right? So let's bring in our drop down and drop it right here and remove this guy. And here we're gonna go ahead with the dynamic choice, and as you know, as we talked about it before, it's gonna come from the options table of customer status. We're gonna bring in all of them, and the current option should be the display one. Okay, now let's give it a name, account status, and go to layout and remove the fixed width and the minimum width. Height we're going to keep, and since this is ready to go, we're going to go ahead and highlight this, Control C to copy, and come in here, Control V that, and remove this guy. Okay, now let's go change the data source. Here we're going to choose customer stage and all customer stage, current option, display. Boom. At this point, let's take a quick look what's happening. Okay, now let's drop down. Our data came straight from the options table. Here also, these are fine. And quickly, let's check, bring in the Google's responsive tool and see how this is reacting. There you go. Nice. Let's refresh. And all lining up very nicely. All right, let's remove that. Go back. Now let's see what's happening here. Account owner. Let's go to our original. Here we're using a search box with the capability of something like this. If you type in a first two digits or first two letters, it's going to go to the database and bring in the users and let you choose from it as an account owner, right? So let's set that up. All right, so account owner, right? So we're gonna go ahead and look for a search box and bring it in right here and get rid of this guy. Now, first of all, let's check out the layout here and of course give it a name, account owner. Let's go to layout, remove the fixed width, remove the minimum width. There you go. I'm going to keep that minimum height intact, not a problem. Now let's go see what it wants. So define an option, right? Dynamic choice. So let's define what we're looking into here, where it should search, right? And we choose user database and specifically the names. There you go. So now let's preview account owner. There you go, it's working. Okay, now deal size. Let's go deal size. I mean, this is a regular input, but this will be a currency. Deal size we will express in currency. So, and here I'm working with euros, so I'm going to choose euro. So let's preview. So anytime somebody drops in a number, it's gonna give you the euro sign by default. All right, and now let's check out the last one. It's a date time picker, right? So let's go find a date time picker right here, and we're going to drop it right there. Choose this, remove, and let's rename close date and layout. Remove the fixed width, remove the minimum width, and keep the minimum height. And let's preview, and here it is. Perfect. Okay, so looks like our base structure of our form is ready with all the necessary types and the data sources. Now let's bring in a button and go to action. But before I do that, I think I should clean up a little, remove these borders and minimize that size to 0, right? In fact, we should do it right away first. Let's see, this 150, if it goes, okay. Here, 150 to 0, this guy. Now I'll remove those borders and come right back to show you the status. Okay, so I just removed all those borders, and let's have a sneak peek quickly. There you go. The form is looking pretty great. So now let's move on and bring in a button that will help us insert the data. So let's grab that button. There you go. And I'm going to go ahead and tell it add new account. All right. And I'm going to go ahead and give it a longer length, about 100 pixel extra. There you go. And I'm going to remove the default styles and give it a black background. Perfect. Now I'm going to go ahead and center this and give it a top margin of 10 pixel and bottom margin of, let's say, 50. There you go. Our button is now ready. Next, we will wire this up with a workflow so that we can start inserting new data. All right, so we have our form ready and we have our button ready to go. So let's add this workflow so that we can start adding new customers to our database. So let's go back. All right, and highlight this button, start a workflow. And here we're going to go to data, create new thing. And this time we're trying to create customer. And before we get into detail, just let's take a look at the database and our app data. And look, this is what the data looks like. Account name, owner, close date, blah, 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 right? And this is all the data fields that needs to be filled in. So now let's go back to the workflow. All right, we are adding a new customer, so let's start adding the fields. Starting from the top, account name, and that should match with our input account name. Its value, perfect. Now next, account owner, that should match our search box account owner and its value. Next, close date. We do have a close date, but it is a date time picker and its value. Perfect. Next, contact email, and we do have an input of, okay, and this is where all the names come in handy. So let me just go, maybe I made a mistake here. Let's go, let's see what the name is. See, they're all names. Okay, so let's change this to email, and this number is also should be contact number, contact email, contact number. Okay, these are perfect. This is status, and this guy, okay, there you go. So this should be status, and this guy's account status is fine. This guy, oh sorry, it should be account stage. And this one, account owner, contact name. So this should be deal size, and close date is close date. Perfect. Now let's go back there. Okay, so contact email should match contact email's value, and it does. Another, we have what is next? Customer status should be the account status. It's a value. Now let's see, customer stage, drop down account stage and its value. Now let's see how many we have here, and input deal size and its value, and there should be a number. Contact number is missing, and we have contact number's value. Perfect. Okay, it looks like we have all our data points matched and we are ready to go. That being done, let's preview. Okay, and before we start hitting this, I want to bring in an alert so that it tells the user that it has done its job, right? So let's find an alert. There you go. Let's drop it right here and position of the alert at the top. So I'm just going to put it on the top, and I'm going to say customer added successfully, right? And let's go back to the workflow. After this does its job, I'm going to add element show message. There you go, and this is the one, this is the only one we have. So that being done, let's now refresh, and try to add the data. Account name, okay, the contact name, contact number, and an email. Status, let's make this a lead, and qualified. And account owner, let's choose this guy right here, and the deal size would be, let's just say, pretty big one, 450K, and this will close on October 25th. And let's add this account. Okay, it said it successfully did, but what I needed to do though, this guy is usually doesn't have any fixed width. Yeah, this is what I wanted. Sorry about that. And one thing I want to add to my workflow is that once the data is inserted, let's take us to our home page or the data page, index UT, so that we get to see what data we inserted. So let's have it one more time. 89,000, and closes pretty soon, July 31st. And now let's see what happens when we click successful, and right there, that's our data. Perfect. So at this point, oh, actually, we're missing the contact information. I'll go troubleshoot that and come right back. All right, so this is what happened. We actually missed that account contact name, right? It's a simple mistake, easily fixed. So let's go and find contact name and put it into our contact name value, right? So next time, whatever we insert, it's gonna show up, but this time it didn't. That's why we have these guys empty. But this is also very interesting because this is a great segue to our next step, because next step we're about to build an edit feature, right? So let's say we missed it. So now we should be able to click here, go to that page and add them, because we get to edit it. Just like our original here. Let's go back. And anytime, let's say this one was missing, so we could always click here, come to this page and take care of the situation, right? And at the same time, we're going to be adding an extra feature called delete account. That's coming up. All right, so let's get started. Okay, so what we're going to do, let's go ahead and create a new page and call it UT index UT dash edit customer, and we're going to clone index UT next customer, new customer, create. All right, before we do anything here, first thing, go to the page and we have to set a content type of customer. And this is very important because now the page knows that all the data it is going to be displaying will belong to the customer table, right? And this being said, once we're going to make the calls from the original page, from the table, and this guy right here, we're also going to send the customer data from this specific row to this page. And this, the type of content, will help this page understand that data and display here. Now let's get this form ready to receive data. All right, let's start here. Let's call it the account, and now add dynamic data, current page customer, because now this page knows that it should be displaying customer data. So as soon as we click from the current, from the table here, it should just bring in that data and display that specific customer account name. So that is the header taken care of. Now let's go take care of this inputs one by one. And here we should put an initial content, current page customer, account name. This is contact name, so initial content should be, once again, current page customer, contact name. Also, this guy, contact number, initial content, current page customer, contact number, email, dynamic, current page customer, contact email, the status. This is a different, this is a drop down, right? So it should have a default value, current page customers status. All right, staging, default value, current page customer, customer stage. Done. And now let's see, this is a different one. It's a search box, and this also has a default value. So let's go find out current page customer and account owner. Okay, deal size, initial content, current page customer, deal size. Perfect. Also, this guy is a date time picker, initial content, current page customer, close date. All right. Now we filled up our form with the necessary data. Now we're gonna go ahead and make a copy of this. Right. Okay. So that means we're gonna need another container and create a row. So let's bring in a group here. And let's go, and then we should call this button container, and layout should be row, and remove the fixed width so that it expands end to end, and no minimum width. Minimum height is okay for now. Now let's keep moving these buttons here. All right, and go to container and center them. Now let's call these buttons update customer, and this guy should be delete account, and give it a little bit of a space here on the left side, about 20 pixels. Oh, sorry, I put it in the padding, should be here, 20. There you go. And I'm gonna go ahead and change this background to red. All right, delete account should be red. Perfect. Now let's grab this and go to setting up a workflow. Okay, so basically it is still considering the old one, so I'm gonna go ahead and delete all of them and start over. And I'm going to go to data, and this time we're making change to thing, and in here the thing would be current page customer, and here we're going to go ahead and match all our inputs with the data tables. So let's start with account name equals to input account name, its value, next account owner, and input account owner search box which value. Then let's go with close date, and here we should look for our datetime picker, its value, and then contact email, its value, the input. Next, the contact name, here contact name, its value of the input. Next, contact number right here, its value. Next, customer stage, and we should look for a drop down account stage and its value. Next, customer status, drop down value, customer status, account status basically. And last one should be the deal size, and we can find the deal size right here, inputs value, and that gives us all the data points. And at this point I would like to show that alert that we have. I'm not going to change any text or anything, that's fine. And once that is done, I will take the user to our index UT page so that the data is visible. Once this is done, okay, now what we're going to do though, we will go back. This is pretty much done, so what we will have to do at this point, go to index UT where our table is and find the data row. In here, let's start a workflow. We're going to go navigate to our index edit customer, and here is the catch. We're going to have to send the data current cell customer. There you go. So for each customer, it's going to catch that data and display into our edit customer. That's the page, right? So now that we are at the home page, let's preview. And let's pick one of these because we need to fill out this account contact name, right? So let's click here. Boom, there you go, BMW Corp and everything. All the data is filled up except for this, right? So let's type it in. Elon Musk, and let's say update customer added successfully. We come back and we find Elon Musk. For good measure, let's try this one also. Boom, there you go. And add Bill Gates. Update customer successfully. Come back. Bill Gates is right here. So we are 95% done with our project. All we have to do now is that, see, I already created delete me. So this is something that we're going to be deleting using this one next. All right, so we're back at our editor here, and this time let's just pick this button and let's go start a workflow. In here, let's go to data and delete thing. And what thing? Going to use the current page customer. We're going to delete that guy, right? And once that happens, we will go straight to our table page, our data table page, right? So it's simple enough. All right, so we're back at the home page. Now let's click here, delete me one. Okay, we're here, see all the data, and now let's delete this account. Boom, we're here, and there's no longer delete me one available. So we are at the end of our project. But before I finish, let me just show you something. I consider this to be a flaw of bubble. It's like, let's say if I try to hit B, the letter B, and it filters. But as you can see, the last two, BMW and Benz, are missing. And if I do an uppercase B, then they are showing up. Only because it is case sensitive. I mean, this is a search box which is case sensitive. I mean, which is ridiculous to me. And so far, I haven't found anything especially easy or like using the bubble default stuff to make it case insensitive. I could not do it. If anyone out there can have an easy explanation or solution for me, please let me know. All right, there's something very important we missed here, which is the responsiveness of this table. So far we have used Flexbox all the way through. So the rest of it is responsive. But when it comes to this data table though, see, it's gonna keep on squeezing and at one point it's gonna break, right? So for that, in one of my previous videos, the approach I took was to take this whole repeating group and turn that layout into fixed layout, and that did it. But then that also gave me some extra work because it messes with the data structure here. It looks ugly, and there's some work involved, right? But this time I'm going to take a different approach. What I'm going to do, I'm going to take this row here, the data row, and I mean, instead of the entire repeating group, just this one row, and I'm going to go to the layout and change this into a fixed layout. All right, so it may look weird here, but let's do a preview. All right, so things doesn't look so bad, right? Everything looking all right. And now if I try to go responsive, see, the rest goes nicely, right? Which means just this header also, we have to go find the header. Let's bring it back from hidden state, right? Now we have the header. Now let's click on this group table header and change this one also to fixed. Now let's preview. All right, everything looking pretty good. And now let's try to go responsive again, and it's nice and easy, pretty good. There you go. And the user can also sliding this table and look at the whole thing. All right, so we can also see that there's a little bit of gap that got created here, right? So there's a quick fix here. What we have to do, just go to that table header, and as you remember, we have taken out this logic right here. This element is visible on page load, right? But what we didn't do is the collapse when hidden. So we just check that, and also check this animate option, right? I mean, this is not really necessary, but collapse when hidden, it is a must. So once you do that, let's preview. There you go. That extra space goes away, you get your table back, and at the same time, it remains to be responsive. Just like that. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please smash the like button and the subscribe button. This will help me bring more free contents like this to you every week. Thanks again.